This biker thug should have known he picked on the wrong woman. He tried to corner this bartender, but it ended up backfiring on him and his goons in the worst way possible. Meanwhile, behind the bar, this woman was calmly preparing a drink for her customer when a group of bikers walked into the establishment. She didn't pay them much mind until they started getting loud and aggressive. The woman watched them from behind the bar as they approached her. Although she was scared, she tried to keep her cool and act like everything was fine. However, one of the bikers aggressively asked for a drink, which made her nervous. She slowly reached for the bottle, but it was too late because that's when the man grabbed her arm. He was trying to intimidate her, so she would give them what they wanted. But little did he know, this bartender had a dark past and was more than capable of handling herself. It all started when the bikers entered the saloon. At first, the woman behind the bar didn't think much of it. After all, people came in and out of the saloon every day. It wasn't unusual for people to walk in and sit down for a drink. However, these men were different. From the moment they stepped foot inside, their presence radiated danger. They weren't just your average patrons looking for a drink. There was something unsettling about them. The woman had worked at this saloon for many years and had seen all kinds of customers, from rowdy cowboys to tired travelers. But there was just something about these men that made her uneasy. It was their demeanor, their body language, their very essence. As they approached the bar, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She knew deep down that these men meant trouble. But before she could react, one of the bikers slammed his motorcycle helmet on the bar, causing the woman to jump. This was her breaking point. In that instant, she knew she had to do something to protect herself. She couldn't just stand there and let these bikers intimidate her. As the bikers approached the counter, the woman took a deep breath and tried to calm her nerves. She knew she needed to stay calm if she was going to get through this encounter unscathed. With a shaky hand, she reached for a bottle of whiskey and began pouring a drink for the man who had slammed his helmet on the counter. She forced herself to focus on the task at hand, trying to ignore the menacing stares of the other bikers. But the silence was broken by the sound of another biker slamming his helmet on the counter. This time, it was followed by a loud, "What the hell is taking her so long?" The woman's heart skipped a beat. She had never dealt with such rudeness before, let alone from a group of burly bikers.
Ow.
But she refused to show them that they were getting to her. With a tight smile, she turned to the man who had spoken and said, "Coming right up." She continued to pour his drink, all the while keeping an eye on the other bikers, who were now circling around her. One of the bikers stepped closer, leaning against the counter with a sneer on his face. "Don't take it so seriously, sweetheart," he drawled. "We're just here for a drink." The woman didn't respond. Instead, she picked up the bottle and began wiping it down with a rag, her eyes never leaving the bikers. As she turned to pour another drink, one of the bikers reached out and grabbed her wrist. His touch was rough and unwelcome, sending shivers down her spine. "Hey," he growled, his eyes boring into hers. "I want that drink now." The woman tried to pull away from his grasp, but he only tightened his grip on her wrist. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to remain calm. She knew that showing fear would only make things worse. With a trembling voice, she said, "I'm sorry, I can't give you a drink. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't." Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to free her wrist from the biker's grip. She had never been so helpless, so at the mercy of someone else's will. The biker laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed around the saloon. "Oh, come on, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't play coy with me. You know you want to give me that drink?" The woman shook her head frantically, her tears streaming down her face. She tried to pull away, but the biker's grip on her wrist was like iron. In that moment of desperation, the woman knew she had to do something drastic. She couldn't let this biker harm her. She wouldn't. With a surge of adrenaline, she reached out and grabbed the nearest bottle of whiskey. She swung it with all her might, catching the biker squarely on the head. The bottle shattered on impact, sending shards of glass flying everywhere. The biker howled in pain, clutching his head as he stumbled back. The other bikers, who had been watching with amusement, suddenly looked angry. They began to advance on the woman, their faces contorted with rage. But before they could reach her, she grabbed a bar stool and held it out in front of her like a shield. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice surprisingly firm. "Stay away from me." The bikers hesitated, surprised by her sudden outburst. For a moment, the saloon was silent, except for the sound of the woman's ragged breathing. Then one of the bikers burst out laughing. "Oh, this is too good," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "Did we just get trolled by a bartender?" The other bikers joined in, their laughter echoing around the saloon. The woman stood her ground, her heart racing. She didn't know what to expect next. Then, as if on cue, the door to the saloon swung open, and a group of men in black leather jackets walked in. They were tall and muscular, with faces that were both handsome and intimidating. The lead man, whose face was partially covered by a black leather helmet, scanned the room with a piercing gaze before his eyes landed on the woman behind the bar. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice a low growl. The woman nodded, still shaken, but relieved by the arrival of the mysterious men. The lead man turned to the bikers, his gaze cold and hard. "Get out of here," he commanded, "and don't ever come back." The bikers, who had been taunting the woman just moments before, suddenly looked frightened. They mumbled apologies and hastily gathered their belongings and left the saloon. As the door swung shut behind them, the woman let out a shaky breath. She had never been so grateful for the sight of a group of burly men in leather jackets. The lead man, noticing her trembling hands, walked over and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Are you sure you're all right?" he asked again. The woman nodded, her throat too dry to speak. The lead man turned to his companions and gave a curt nod. "Let's get out of here," he said. And with that, they disappeared into the night. Left alone in the dimly lit saloon, the woman slumped against the counter, her body trembling with relief and gratitude. The memory of the man's warm hand on her shoulder lingered, sending a strange fluttering sensation through her chest. Who were these mysterious men? Why had they come to her aid? And why did the mere sight of the bikers change their demeanor so dramatically? As she leaned back against the counter, she couldn't help but wonder. Then it hit her. She recognized those faces, those voices. They were the same men she had encountered at the biker bar. Why were they here? What did they want with her? She racked her brain, trying to remember if she had done anything to cross them, or if they were mistaken her for someone else. Suddenly she remembered a conversation she had overheard. One of the bikers had mentioned a betrayal, a woman who had double-crossed them. Could they be here because of that? Had they found out her identity? She was so engrossed in her thoughts that she didn't hear the saloon doors open until it was too late. The men were upon her, their faces contorted with anger. "So you're the woman who double-crossed us?" one of the men snarled, his eyes blazing with fury. The woman's heart pounded in her chest. She knew she couldn't fight them all, but she wasn't going to go down without a fight. With a wild look in her eyes, she lunged for a bottle of whiskey, hoping to buy some time. But the man was faster. He grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back. "Where are they?" he demanded. The woman struggled to free herself from his grasp, but his grip was like a vice. "What are you talking about?" she cried out. The man's face twisted in a snarl. "Don't play dumb with me," he growled. "We know you've seen our bikes." The woman's mind raced. How had they known she had seen them? Was she in more danger than she realized? "I don't know what you're talking about," she insisted, hoping they would believe her. But the man wasn't convinced. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "We know you saw the accident, the one where Jackson lost his arm." The woman's eyes widened in horror. She had indeed witnessed the accident, but she hadn't thought anyone had noticed. "I didn't see anything," she whispered, her voice shaking. The man's grip tightened, sending a jolt of pain through her wrist. "Don't lie to me," he hissed. "Tell me what you saw, and I might consider letting you live." The woman winced, but she stood her ground. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of knowing what they wanted. "Hello." As the man continued to press her, the woman knew she had to do something drastic. She couldn't let them hurt her. The sudden surge of adrenaline, she kicked out, connecting her foot with the man's shin. He yelped in surprise and instinctively loosened his grip. The woman seized the opportunity, twisting her wrist free and knocking the man off balance. Before he could recover, she grabbed a nearby bar stool and brought it down on his head with all her might. The man collapsed, groaning as he clutched his head. The others, taken aback by the woman's sudden attack, hesitated for a moment, but that was all the time she needed. With a burst of energy, she leaped onto the counter and made a mad dash for the door. As she stumbled outside, she heard shouts and curses echoing behind her. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she ran, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't dare look back. She didn't want to know if they were pursuing her. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs ached, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, collapsing behind a large boulder, she dared to catch her breath. As her heart slowly began to calm, she realized she had no idea where she was or where she was supposed to go. Fear threatened to engulf her, but she pushed it down, refusing to let it consume her. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through her panicked thoughts. "There you are," the voice said. "I've been looking everywhere for you." The woman turned and saw the lead man from the biker gang, his expression etched with concern. "How did you find me?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from running. The man's gaze softened. "We found your purse with your ID," he said gently. "We were worried about you." The woman's eyes widened in surprise. She had never imagined these rough-looking men would display such kindness. Taking a deep breath, she asked, "What happens now?" The man's lips curved into a reassuring smile. "Now," he said, extending a hand to help her up, "we take you home.